Hello, welcome back to Two Broken Thumbs, the podcast where our plans didn't change and we were going to watch Toy Story 4 no matter what because nothing happened to make the theaters close.
Mm-mm.
Nope,
Nothing's going on right
nothing at
now in the
all.
world.
Nope, pretty normal.
Nothing worth talking about.
Yeah, definitely not worth talking about.
Yeah,
Just your average, it's an average day in America.
That's right.
And if you're watching this in the future, first of all, thank goodness, because that means we lived.
Well, maybe.
Maybe. If this is the next species that took over, starts taking over, and then listen to this, welcome. Geez, hi.
I'm picturing like in Fallout, someone has just found like an audio file, and they like went through a lot of work to get to work, and it's just this,
It's just two idiots
right?
talking
like,
about a children's animated film.
like Intel told us that this was gonna tell us how to reduce the radiation levels in our blood. It's just two morons talking about movies.
Well, okay, if that does happen, here's what you need to do. I'll tell you now. What you need to do is you need to make sure that no matter what, you don't.
I wonder if that was intentional or not. Yep, he got disconnected. Nice. Good job.
Anyways, so with the with the jokes out of the way, we're going to talk about a film today, as per usual.
Yeah, maybe more than one. We'll see.
Well, so before we talk about the film, we should talk about the company. But let's start by saying what film it is.
All right.
It's a film. So you want to?
No. You clearly have something set up, so make it happen.
Oh yeah. This film has a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb currently.
A little higher than I'd give it.
It had what? It had won a single Oscar for Best Animated Film, and it is the fourth in a non-needed quadrilogy. At this point, you should probably figure out what it is. It's Toy Story 4.
Yep. Toy Story 4.
Yep.
Oh boy.
It works out pretty well too, because the first movie we did was it was super great. It was well done. It was beautiful. It was a piece of art. Second movie we did, terrible, absolutely garbage. And so it only makes sense for the third movie we do to just be okay. Especially compared to the ones that came before it. But before we talk about the film itself, we should talk about the state of Pixar at this point. Because I think that's important, a little context for what's going on. Jesus, are you okay? Hello?
I was just choking on something. Don't worry. It was a drink.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I was talking to myself for a few minutes, for a few seconds there. I was just like, what?
First, Brandon was yelling something, and then I took a drink, and then it wasn't working out. And I was like, well, he's filling the air, so we're good. All right.
Okay.
Pixar Studio? Yeah,
let's talk about Pixar. So the last few films they've made since Pixar has definitely become a different company.
Yes.
And which is unfortunate because, we're going to do the stating, we're going to state the thing where, I used to watch them as a kid and I loved them. And now I'm sad that they're terrible. But they're not all terrible. Like, not all the films that they've made the past year or so have been bad. But a lot of them has been trying to recapture our childhood, if that makes sense.
Well, a fun thing about Pixar is they were pretty adamant for a while about not really doing sequels.
Yeah.
Like, you look at The Incredibles came out in 2004. It wasn't until 14 years later that the sequel came out. I guess Toy Story 2 came out pretty quickly after Toy Story 1. I think Toy Story 1 came out in 95, and then
Well, so the thing about that is that 1995 is when Toy Story 1 came out. Toy Story 2 came out in 1999, which at the time made sense because they were still trying to show that 3D animation has a place in movies.
Oh yeah.
And even though arguably Toy Story 1 at this point in time is super it does not look it is not aged very well. It is also the first time they've done something like that. So even then, it's still pretty impressive.
I'd say it's aged decently. There's a few.
Yeah, it's not like Shark Tale where like it just looked horrible then and still looks horrible now.
Yeah. No, I think Toy Story 1 holds up pretty well. There's a few things like how all the kids at Andy's birthday party are just a clone of Andy. But
I mean, this is also it was pretty early on.
That was upwards of
like the only real.
That's like 25 years ago now. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. Think about let that one sink in. People from the future.
Oh hey, Joss Whedon was a screenwriter for Toy Story 1. I didn't know that.
Oh, was he really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it makes sense. I will say so. If we're gonna go,
so it makes sense.
If we're gonna talk about Toy Story 4, we need to talk about at what point did Pixar lose everything?
Sure.
At what point did Pixar become more based around what made money?
Well,
and sadly, the movie I have to point to for that one, and the movie that people point to normally is Cars 2. Which, yeah,
I'm looking at their list right now. That seems to be about the point, because if we run through it, first one was Toy Story. This isn't including like the shorts or anything.
No, it's just the films.
So we have Toy Story, which was in 95, which pretty excellent. Then Bug's Life, also really good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Toy Story 2, good, very much needed, I would say. Well,
I think Toy Story 2 is still the best of the Toy Story quadrilogy, in my opinion.
I think I'd probably agree with you there.
I think that's the one that cemented the entire Pixar as the leading animation studio to show, this is what you can do. You can do both comedy and drama, and with a bunch of toys, And
a lot of these movies do that, comedy and drama together.
Yeah. Then they did they did Monsters Inc.
Yep.
Classic. Finding Nemo.
Very good. Finding Nemo is one of my favorite movies.
Pretty great, but I still think The Incredibles is one of the best Pixar films.
The Incredibles is very good.
Then I didn't know Brad Bird did Ratatouille. I didn't know that at all.
I didn't know that either. Missed. There's Cars.
Well, yes, there is Cars.
Yep. Well, I thought the first Cars was pretty good.
Now, here's the thing, though. For the trailers for when they did Up, or for when they did the trailers for WALL-E, they had talked about how each of these movies they've written so far, for all these, there was an idea behind it. Like they all sat down for a day at a coffee shop and wrote all these movies out. So basically, everything after WALL-E has been something they've come up with, like the new stuff. And while arguably Up is probably the best one they've done, everything else is just.
So everything after WALL-E, they came up with around the same time, is what you're saying?
Everything that came after WALL-E is just like whatever, like their newest stuff. Everything Toy Story to WALL-E was all the stuff that like was made back in like 95.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, everything else has been
that's all like the original.
And that's why all the newer films are sequels, with like the occasional new idea.
With a few exceptions, like Brave and Inside Out.
Yeah, but those ones you can arguably say are not as strong as the other ones.
I actually haven't seen Brave, and I liked Inside Out, but I didn't think it was as strong.
It wasn't strong, and Brave was pretty generic all the way through. It was Brother Bear, but with Irish folk.
Of course.
Like, I wish I was joking, but that's literally what it boiled down to.
Yep.
And the newest film as of this recording is Toy Story 4 with Soul on the Way. But the problem is that almost every movie they've done this year is a sequel, and they haven't been very good. I mean, well, yes, they look beautiful. They look pretty. They look great. That's fine and all. but I don't care about that. I expect quality from them. I expect everything to look nice.
So as of this recording, I haven't seen Coco, or not. Well, that's true. I haven't seen Coco. I haven't seen Onward, which came out recently.
Yes, that's also that. Sorry, that's the newest one. Sorry.
Yeah, and then there's another movie set to come out in a couple months called Soul.
Soul, yeah. It's basically the idea. It's Inside Out, but with death.
Oh, yikes!
Yeah,
seems dark.
And it does seem dark, but the problem is that they take back the death. Like in the second trailer they showed basically the story of, oh, I'm not actually dead yet. Let's get me back in my body. Like, well, that's kind of dumb. Like,
oh, like soul separated from body kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, well,
little Doctor Strange action for us.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there going like, well, if the film is about losing what you have and enjoying life when you had it, why would you go back to your? It's complicated. There's stuff about that film that I don't really want to get into because it's weird.
Well, that's right, and we still don't even know if that's necessarily going to be it.
Yeah, we don't know much about the film.
We'll look into that later. But
yeah, when it comes out, we might actually start, guys. We might actually start talking about films that came out recently. Whoa,
Guns Akimbo came out recently.
Yeah, I guess so. But I did see Coco, and I thought Coco was probably the strongest, to be honest, out of all the films that have come out recently.
Okay.
I feel like
by recently, do you mean like since WALL-E, or
since WALL-E? Yeah.
Okay.
Since WALL-E, yeah. Ever since WALL-E, I think Coco has been like their best film they've made so far, and it's just because the research they went into for doing all of this, looking up all this information about Mexican culture, about how they deal with the dead, is very interesting. The music's great, which is weird because normally you assume Disney's a company that does musicals, but Pixar did an amazing musical. And overall, I just think it was well made, and I really enjoyed it. But everything from then, everything besides that, just been okay or bad. And Toy Story 4 is no different. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, like Incredibles 2 was really hype, but it was okay.
And the villain didn't need to be a twist villain. I didn't think that was important or needed to happen.
Monsters University is okay.
It went against Monsters Incorporated lore.
Yeah, it was damaging in a few bits. Do you have any examples of that on the top of your head?
Yes, there is a time, or Twine. There's a scene where Mike says to Sully that he's been jealous of his looks since the 4th grade. So they've known each other since they were children, like since they were kids.
Oh, this movie says,
no, they don't.
They didn't meet until college.
And you know what? You can't say that he was just saying that as a joke, but even then, I don't think that's right. That doesn't, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't like when they,
But the message for Monsters University is a good one, where maybe sometimes the dreams you have will come true, but you can still be happy. And I think that's a good message. The one thing I will say, most of these films do pretty well, is get a good message across, without shoving it down your throat.
Right. Maybe not Toy Story 4, but we'll talk about that.
And I was about to say, not Toy Story 4.
Do you have any like favorites among Pixar that you want to share?
You mean like the pre or the pre ones?
Just in general.
Oh yeah, I love Pixar. I mean, as a kid, I loved watching it. As much as it doesn't make sense, Cars is like my guilty pleasure when I was a kid. Because even I was just like, this doesn't make sense, but it just was silly, I thought Mater was funny,
Yeah.
I think Cars is the only one of the free ones where I'm sitting there going like, all right. I'm glad they didn't make 2 sequels of the series. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
The thing about it is that as time went on, you saw like how well their animation has become better and more crisp and clean. But I've reached a point where I'm like, when I go see a Pixar film, I expect it to look.
Right.
I know what the type of style or design they're going to go for.
They're owned by Disney.
Try to improvise. Well, I get that, but like, animation.
That's my point. They're owned by Disney. I expect it to look good because they have the money.
Yeah, and that's fine, but like, I want to see some experimentation with CGI. I am so upset that the Toy Story 4 won best animated because Klaus should have won. Honest to God, Klaus should have won. It looks 1,000 times better, and the story is cuter, and it's the point of that award isn't to give it to Pixar; it's to give it to the thing that tried something new. You know?
Well, I don't know. I feel like it's to give it to whoever did the best. What movie did you say you think it should go to? I haven't seen it.
Klaus. It's a Netflix original. But what they did is they combined 2D and 3D animation. And so it looks 2D, but it's done all in like a 3D animation kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'll have to check
it
out.
It's pretty good. And look behind the scenes to learn more about how it's made. It's pretty great. But there's a whole uproar because Toy Story 4, yeah, it looks pretty, but that's basically all you can get out of this film. I'm not going to lie.
What kind of thing?
There's a few things. I have a few positives, but mostly negatives. Actually, no, it's perfectly balanced.
I mean, it seems to have worked with nostalgia pretty well, but I don't, I kind of expect something better.
Yeah, especially from the movie that's supposed to conclude the quadrilogy. I don't really see. Okay, you know what? Let's jump into the film and talk about it. let's jump into why this film doesn't really work well in the universe of Toy Story.
I take it.
Go away. So as you guys know, in Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, it's mostly about things are changing and how the game deals with it. Mostly how Woody and Buzz deal with it.
Well,
Woody in the first one has to. Yeah,
well, we can run through them real quick.
Yeah, so, that's what I have to do.
Yeah. So first one. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to go for it.
Nah.
The first one, Woody was, he was in charge. He was the one making sure everything was running smoothly and making sure that everyone didn't get caught. Make sure that everyone was doing fine. So when someone new came by and took over, the new cool kid, he felt like his power was being threatened, and eventually the two of them have to work together. And it's him basically learning how to deal with new situations and how to change and evolve. By the end, he obviously does. Him and Buzz realize, Buzz realizes he's a toy, and Woody realizes that, he needs to understand his new friend.
Yep.
And it's a sweet story.
Yep, they have a common goal that they can work together for.
Yeah, and by the end, they're basically inseparable. And then the second movie, it's much more interesting to see where the story goes from there. Where now Woody realizes that they're toys, they're disposable. They have a limited life cycle before the kids stop wanting to play with them. And so now he has to deal with the conflict of, do I want to be loved for a short amount of time, or do I want to be put into a glass box where I'm never loved, but I'm never hurt again?
Right.
Which people can understand in real life too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the glass box part, but opening yourself up to someone.
I mean, maybe almost like the idea of maybe like becoming famous or something. You could try to make an argument for.
Yeah, because he was a famous toy. Yeah, that was his whole thing. Was that he was he used to be a famous toy. He was, there was merchandise of him. There was stuff of him. There's a show about him. All these things about him.
So millions of people will see him, but it's like he's never getting played with or anything. So it's like almost artificial.
Yeah. So does he feel love anymore at that point? And it's interesting, and that very well juxtaposed with I forgot her name. That's embarrassing. Was it Wendy? The girl, the female cowboy.
Yeah. Jessie.
Yeah. Jessie's whole thing was about how she was loved and then injured, and now she wants to be in a box too. She's willing. She's like, yeah, I've been hurt, and I've been one of those toys. That's still a moment that still makes me cry to this day. It's so good.
Oh yeah, they got like the song going and everything, and they show the flashbacks.
Yeah. And unlike in a certain movie, the song doesn't beat you over the head with the symbolism.
Right.
Which Toy Story 4 does that. And then Toy Story 3, it's now they've grown up. Your kid's grown up. Yeah, now you've reached a point in time where now the kids moved on, and now you have to figure out: do you want to be loved by all these kids, or do you stay with this kid until the inevitable end? And so at this point, I feel like all the characters kind of reach their point where, the story has made sense. Everything's worked out. Everyone has their emotions figured out, and there's no need for another one.
Absolutely. The ending of Toy Story 3 is fantastic. And I wasn't really a fan when I heard that they were making another Toy Story because I thought 2 was a good ending. But Toy Story 3's ending is like almost flawless, I'd say.
Yeah. There's a few things, like there's weird suggestions that Andy knows that that they're alive, and like that's a little weird.
Right. And I mean, each one of these movies like has to break its rules a little bit in the climax of the film for the payoff. But
yeah, for the payoff to work, and
right.
That's where we get into this film.
Well, then this one happens.
There is a lot of moments in Toy Story 4 when I'm sitting there going like, all right, this is getting ridiculous. Like, I get it. We're supposed to have our suspend our disbelief because the kids are still looking out. But like, or the toys are still looking out for the kids. But even then, I'm sitting there going like, this in broad daylight, no one sees this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had that same exact problem with the Finding Dory, where like, the fishes are literally jumping from pond to pond and nobody's noticing.
Oh yeah,
in a very public place.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so a lot of the rules feel broken. And of course, we have to talk about Forky.
Right. So that brings in some interesting questions about life in this universe.
What is real and what isn't real? Why is a chair alive? Why,
right.
Why is it this truck alive? There's some things in this.
It's strange to kind of try to figure out because it's like, okay, so how do you establish like what's alive? And it's like, okay, so maybe it has a face. Well, no, because there's the hockey puck in the first movie. That's alive.
Yeah.
All right, maybe it's like arms and legs. No, not really. And then you think about like if pain exists.
Is it voice? Is there a voice? Do they have a voice of some sort? Well, that can't be true either because the main conflict of this one, the main villain, needs a voice box.
Right.
And by the end of it, spoiler, sorry. Bleep that out. Pat, bleep that out.
Pat, fix.
Yeah, sorry.
But yeah, yeah, very, very strange. Like Forky turning around and saying like, my job is to be used for soup, maybe chili, and then I'm to be thrown away. I am trash. And then like jumping out of the window of the RV. It's like, oh,
yeah,
it's this is
existentialism. Yeah,
I wonder if like they don't really want you to think about this,
I don't think they did really. They just wanted a toy to sell.
Right.
Even though the whole premise of Forky is that he's a toy a kid can make.
There's a kit you can buy to build your own Forky. It's like $20.
Yeah, I know,
Disney.
and I'm like, or I could just make it.
Or I could go to a local trash can and
that. The whole concept of this character is that he was made from trash.
Right.
So now you're selling us trash.
So that's very interesting to consider, like what can be thrown together and then gain consciousness.
Yeah, and as I said before, I think it's ridiculous that there's a chair,
right,
a kid's chair that's alive.
Well, it's like, what if are Legos alive? And if so, how do they work? Are they like?
Is each Lego alive? Yeah,
right. Or is it like a consciousness that like
once they're all together, are they alive?
Maybe.
I mean, we never really get to see Legos in this film, so I guess that's really not a major concern. But
it's also a bit interesting to consider like death, because we see movies get we see toys like fall apart or like get broken all the time, and
but they're still conscious.
They're like fine. They usually don't even look like they're in pain or anything. But
yeah, before you go into the comments saying you guys are over kids movie, I think if this is one of the times where you can do that.
So I'm not a fan of when people tell me I'm thinking too much. Contrary to popular belief, people, using your brain, actually a good thing. Using your brain can tell you a lot of things. Like it can help.
And you kind of have to have your brain on for the first 3 movies at least, to understand what the story is trying to tell you.
It certainly makes them better if your brain is on.
Yeah, you don't really need your brain on for this one because I feel like this one doesn't really have a thing to say. It's like we move from one area or one action set piece to the next action set piece.
Well, the weird thing about this one is, like, the ending. Are we spoiling?
Yeah. There's some stuff I want to talk about before the spoilers.
All right. Well, I think there's a message, but I think it hurts the messages from the other films.
I would agree. I think I would agree with that.
So what else do you want to talk about before we spoil?
I want to talk about some positives I have about the film, and then we talk about in spoilers the theme, and then I have to talk about the villain too.
Yeah.
But let's start with yeah. But let's start with the positives. I think the beginning of the movie was pretty good to set up what was going to be what I thought was going to be the main conflict, which is the fact that Woody has to now deal with someone who's been in charge of this group of toys for a while now. That whole concept, it makes sense. He used to be the leader, and now he has to, realize, oh, I'm no longer the leader. I have to pull back my power and try to stop controlling everybody.
Right.
And I think that's a really cool idea for where the stories go.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a valuable lesson to be learned.
I think that's a lesson that Woody does need to learn because in every movie, he's basically been the one in charge, except for when he's separated from the group, which Buzz takes over.
Right.
But I could kind of see Buzz kind of now being like, all right, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to let whoever's in charge here tell us how this place works, because this is nothing like Andy. Let's figure out how this works.
That's kind of funny that they all turn to Buzz when, like in the middle of the movie when Woody's gone and like Dolly doesn't say anything.
Yeah, then that's my main problem is that this whole concept could work.
So they have this concept, but they do nothing with it.
Yeah, and they don't run with it. And I think that would have been a cool way it could still work with the story. I still think you could have kept Buzz with Woody. I think they could have, I want to see their interactions because that's what made the first movie so great was their interactions.
Well, they're like the two characters in each movie. Like they're always.
But sadly,
Buzz feels really pushed to the side in this one.
Yeah, Buzz just feels like he's an afterthought. They're like, oh yeah, we have not Tim Allen. We got this other guy. We got to put him in the story somehow.
Tim Allen.
But that kind of annoyed me. The other thing I actually liked was when Woody and Forky were talking on the highway. I think that scene is a very good scene.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's finally opening up to Forky and helping him understand his life position, basically, and informing him of what his life was like and how it feels to be a toy. I think that's a great way of explaining what's happening. And I definitely feel like that's one of the only scenes of this film I'm going to remember in the future, where they're walking down, talking, and it felt natural.
Yeah. I'd agree. I definitely think it's a good character moment for both of them. And after hours of them talking, they able to reach an agreement, kind of.
Yeah, and it's still funny to me that Forky realizes, oh, so I'm trash to this person, and the joke, being, no, you're not trash, you're their toy, but if that's how you want to believe who you are, yeah,
but if you value trash, then it makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a cute little thing. And I know what, I will say this: I like Sporky. I like Forky's character. I like him a lot. I think he's
Sporky's a better name for him anyway. It's more accurate.
Yeah, I would agree. It's more accurate, but I can't help it. I think he's a great character. I think his naivety is really cute. I think he's very well acted. Whoever plays him, great job. But I think
he's good.
I think he's good. Normally, what films like this do is they have an opening scene where they have like an imagination scene where people are pretending to be in a scene. Turns out that's not what's actually happening. It's the kid's imagination. This film doesn't open up with that, but instead it opens up showing what happened to Bo Peep, which is fine. If that's what you're trying to get across, so you help start the story, that's fine.
We kind of need an explanation for why she wasn't in Toy Story 3.
But what I would like to see was not the explanation of how important Bo Peep was, but rather show us how important Bo Peep was to Molly. You know? I always have that problem where they rather tell us something than show it. It's a visual medium.
Right. Yeah.
The point of the medium is to visualize things. The writing is to help us figure out what's going on. You shouldn't just dump exposition on us. Like there's a scene where Bo Peep and Woody are talking. Woody's talking to like Bo Peep's cop friend and saying, oh man, she was great. She used to do this whole thing where Molly was afraid of the dark, but the Bo Peep came along. I'm like, well, I would love to see that.
Right. Yeah, I could agree with all that. Definitely. I can't believe like Woody actually considers leaving with her at the beginning of the movie.
I don't believe that either. Not at all.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that, well, we already know for a fact that he doesn't. And also, if you use it, once again, if you use your brain, the first thing that person's going to do is be like, oh, hey, were you looking for this toy? Here you go. I found it.
Right.
Even
it's mostly the character thing. Like, that doesn't seem like something he would do. But
no,
this little introduction. Actually, no, never mind. I was going to say, we don't know if it's before or after Toy Story 2, but we do know it's definitely after.
Yeah, it's sometime after. We don't. Yeah. There's a big gap. There's a big gap of time, but is in between those two movies.
Right, in between 2 and 3.
Yeah,
like sometime in there when Andy is still little.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. There are throwaway characters that I really like in this film. There's a character there's a white soldier who kept wanting to get high fives, but kept being denied from people. I thought that was really funny. There's like little characters like that. I'm sitting there going, all right, that's a cute gimmick and a lot. But is there anything you want to talk about that isn't spoiler, James, that you want to discuss about why this film's okay?
I mean, do
you want to talk about Buzz?
I feel like that's almost spoiler-ish. Let's just call it spoilers, and then we'll see how it goes.
All right, sounds good. So, number 50. I'm not even going to come up with the thing. I'm just going to say 50.
50?
Yeah.
50? All right. 34. Flemings.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the first part, so I don't know who Flemings.
34 of them.
Four Flemings?
34.
34 Flemings. Sounds good. All right. All right, so spoiler talk from here on out.
All right, so... Jeez.
Yeah, there's really not much to talk about this film, guys.
So, does everyone remember Toy Story 2? Do we feel
like... You want to remind us?
I don't know, like the ending where it's like, no, we're going back to our kid because we've got to be with them, and Woody's staying with Buzz, like they're together, like till the end. Beyond. Yep. And then they proceed to spend the next however many years. Well, let's take a guess, right? How old, if you had to guess, how old do you think Andy could have been in Toy Story 2?
In Toy Story 2, I was going to say about like 8.
8? That sounds good to me. Let's call it 8 to 10, right? To be safe. At the end, at the beginning of Toy Story 3, Andy is going to college. We can assume that Andy has most likely stopped playing with those toys for the most part, right? Probably.
Yeah, of course.
10, 11.
Around, I was going to say around like 14, 13.
Right. So we're talking a potential, 4 years of them sitting in the closet, essentially just collecting dust.
Yeah.
Right? But they're staying true, sticking with Andy. All right, so Woody doesn't get played with by Bonnie for a week. That's the introduction to this film. And at the end, he's leaving her to go be with Bo Peep.
Yeah, it's a little funny.
And on top of that, there's a scene in the movie where she's playing with Woody and Forky. It's like during one of the montages, so you're not really supposed to think about it much, but I feel like the movie kind of shoots itself in the foot there.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of leads into my main issue with this movie. The ending feels like it's telling me that it's okay to move on, like if you're not getting played with. because they'll be okay. But if you try to run with that logic, any toy that hasn't been played with in a week should
just
right.
Just leave.
Like it.
Well, I don't even think it's just the fact that he wasn't being played with. I think it was also because of the one girl, the one doll at this point has been taken over as the leader of the group, which goes against the mini movies that have come out, like the direct-to-TV specials. Woody was still in charge, but I guess those aren't canon. So
well, that's kind of funny though, because like she's like spouting out orders at the beginning, but then never again.
Yeah, no, and then she just becomes a side character. I'm like, well, that's kind of, and like I said, I think a lot of these characters just get drafted to the side. Like,
right, you watch like the first 10 minutes of the movie and you've already gotten through like 90% of her screen time.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, same goes for like pretty much everyone else too. Like Jesse and Bullseye like have no part in this movie at all, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. I even forgot the donkey was a character until like the very end when they were hugging. Oh yeah, you're in this film. Why weren't you?
Right.
Why didn't you do anything?
Just, it's unfortunate.
And I think that's a big problem with just sequels in general, though. Like when you make a sequel to a film, now you have all these characters, and the more characters you add, the less screen time each character gets.
I think you could say that, but I think other movies also do really well by separating the group and then developing characters on their own. Like if you watch like the second Lord of the Rings movie, like you really get to establish Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. Whereas before they hardly got anything because the first movie was mostly about Gandalf and Frodo.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think that's fine. And I think even then Shrek 1, 2, and 2 developed the new characters pretty well. And even in Shrek Forever After, all the characters have something they do.
Right.
So in the end, each of the characters have something plot. But it feels like all these characters exist only to just be toys that they can sell.
Right. It feels like Buzz has virtually no lines until like a third of the way through the movie, and then he becomes a character.
Where he goes to comfort. Yeah.
And then every other character just doesn't. It's like just there to do like reaction shots, essentially.
And to be there for, and to then all of a sudden turn to ask Buzz what they should do.
Right.
Which, like we've already established, is very weird and out of character and strange.
Also, Buzz kind of gets ruined. For some, see, Woody has a conversation about your conscience with him, and Buzz takes that to about the voice inside of you. And Buzz takes that very literally and starts, pressing the buttons on his suit to get a voice.
The problem is that they kind of made him dumber. But like every film that they've done with Buzz has had that gimmick where, well, in Toy Story 1, he just wasn't aware. So, he was just that guy. Toy Story 2, he was replaced by a villainous version, not villainous, but like resetted factory version of himself. In Toy Story 3, he was set to be certain reset factory version of himself in Spanish. Like every film, there was a gimmick with Buzz, something going wrong with Buzz and people turning to him. And I feel like we never really got a chance to really, see Buzz as an actual leader. We saw Buzz as a, incompetent leader.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like he's had all these gimmicks in each one, but he still has a very like core set of values that you'll notice. And like especially
he's so intelligent.
Especially in Toy Story 2. Like he's doing anything to try to get Woody back. But like in this one, he's like faced with the decision to help Woody or not, or like leave him, and then he just decides to leave him.
Yeah, because he's like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of her." At this point, I'm like,
"No,
care about her?"
No, the one in the middle. After like they try to get Forky back and they fail.
Oh, right, the scene where everyone has to split apart because there's always that scene in the film where all the main characters have to split apart and then come back for the finale.
Right, exactly. But it's just like opts out.
And I would say this one's okay. Like it kind of makes sense with Bo Peep and Woody now having totally different philosophies At this point, Woody's whole gimmick in this movie is basically being a foster parent for Sporky, and his whole gimmick is I need to make sure this kid becomes her favorite toy. It's
Well, he already
the
is.
more I say it, the more I sound like Cars 3, where the whole gimmick was Lightning McQueen helping this new person become a new racer. It's the whole story is about how the old should let the new take over, and about how sometimes the old ways just don't work anymore.
Right.
Which is it's fine, yeah, that's how it works. Sometimes we evolve and change.
It's fine, but I don't know. The movie does not do well at convincing me that Bonnie is not going to be heartbroken when she realizes Woody isn't there in a week.
Yeah, she still uses the sheriff badge. Right. That was an important thing. But even then, I can kind of see it. Like every time that Woody and Sporky are together, she always goes to Sporky, so I kind of get it. But I mean, besides that, I'm sitting there going like, all right, so she's a child. She'll play with you again.
Have you ever stopped playing with playing a game or stopped playing with a toy when you were little and then gone back to it?
Yeah, of course. I always used to be able. I was a weird kid because I like Connects a lot, but I kept going back to Legos, and then I would leave the Connects alone for a while, but then I go back to the Connects because they're fun.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that's weird. I think that's very normal.
Yeah, no,
I definitely.
It's just something that kids sometimes do. Sometimes the kids just play with new things.
Right, they're kids.
Hey, since we talked about the villain for real quick, you want to talk about the villain?
Oh yeah, let's talk about the villain.
Let's talk about the villain.
All right.
Arguably,
good old Gabby.
Arguably, I think this villain is the. I want to say fleshed out, but that's also wrong. I know that for a fact.
Very
it's hard to explain. I want to say nice things about her, but also I don't think she's very good.
I don't think she's very good.
Her motivation makes sense, and her behaviors, okay, sure, whatever. But I don't know. With the opening scene of her being in the cart playing the Shining theme, I was hoping for more. By the way, if you don't know that, yeah, that's real. They played the Shining song that plays at the end of the movie, the song Midnight, the Stars and You. They played that in the background of the scene for a few minutes before changing to a generic, action scene soundtrack. Or not action, but scary theme. I'm like, why would you do that? Just keep that song playing.
Yeah, I think that would have been fine.
I think that would have been great. But back to her. I think her motives make sense. I think, what ends up happening to her makes sense, but I think she's just not interesting,
Yeah, I agree.
She doesn't give off the same aura as Stinky Pete or Lotso. Or I mean, barely even Sid. Like all these characters were evil, and the whole point of them is that they have these philosophies of we're going to do it my way, and if you don't agree with me, then get out of my way. At least Lotso and Stinky Pete were. That's what their whole thing was.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yeah.
No, oh yeah, you're fine.
I agree. And I don't know. It seems like
she didn't fit right.
Right. Like I don't know. Like she's very self-entitled.
Guys, we're sorry. There's not much to talk about this film.
Very frustrating.
Yeah, we really wish there was something we could say nice about this film, but there's just very few things to talk about. There are a few good things, but mostly it's just not that great.
Someone talked about Gabby, and they made a very compelling argument, I thought, but I can't remember what it is, so I'm trying to find it.
Well, while you're finding that out, you want to talk a bit about do you want to talk a little bit about Key and Peele in this film?
Sure.
This isn't really a spoiler. We should have probably talked about this before we went to spoiler, but I think they were kind of natural additions, to be honest.
I think they're funny.
I think their scenes are great.
Without much more value than being entertaining.
Yeah, there were the comedy. There were the comedy characters. Even though we have several comedic characters, you didn't need to hire Key and Peele. There's already several characters that have very interesting characters that we would love to see them, interact with each other. But Key and Peele is fine.
Oh, it's like they opted. The movie runs about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is one of the times where I wouldn't have minded it being long.
I think it should have been a bit longer.
Yeah. It just felt strange, I sat there being like, there's more, right? No? All right, we're just moving to the next set piece.
Well,
and Toy Story has never been about the set pieces. It's been about the characters coming to new environments and dealing with it. But like this film feels like, all right, they're at this new location and they already know everything about the location.
Yeah, it's just jumping around a lot, similar to like an action movie. And
that was never what Toy Story was.
Right. There's and like we already said, there's a lot of characters that we'd kind of like to see, but we don't see any of them. Well,
no,
hardly any of them.
Right.
It's just our main two, and then Bo Peep is back, which I don't know.
And her sheep and the little guy.
If we wanted to have like a compelling story about Bo Peep, I feel like, or about a female character, I feel like Jessie would have been a solid choice.
Well, I get why they went with Bo Peep. I understand, but I would have loved to see Bo Peep and Jessie because they're the main female leads of this movie series, and I would love to see them interact.
Right.
It would have been nice. There's a lot more females in this film, and that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's just, yeah, sure. If the whole point of this film was to be like, we've talked about the action figures and toys, and let's talk about what happens when girls move on from toys. But even then, I felt like that really wasn't implemented very well. There's like one throwaway line where she was just like, anymore. And I'm like, don't you? And then later when they talk about how she helped her be no longer, or help her with being afraid of the dark. I'm like, that kid still looks like she's like 8. She can still be afraid.
Right.
So even then, I'm sitting there going like, all right. So you telling me she needs her Bo Peep, but she gladly got rid of her?
Yeah, just done with her.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. It's also weird that because when they're first talking, like when they're talking to the little police officer, Giggle McDimples, Bo Peep's kind of like dismissing what he's saying. She's like, "Oh, it was a long time ago, it wasn't that big of a deal, whatever." So it seems like there's kind of like I don't want to say like tension, but like it seems like an unresolved issue that she still has, but then it never gets addressed.
She still wants to like she secretly misses being that.
Right. And so it's just kind of weird because Woody agrees with Gabby that being there for a child is definitely the best thing you can do. And then he opts out of it, and then with Bo Peep, but Bo Peep seems to still think that, or Bo Peep still seems to really miss what she had with Molly,
and she's replacing it by helping all these other toys be with someone.
Right. Maybe.
Which by the end of the film,
they had that at an end of credit scene, but it's weird because they don't.
That wasn't her philosophy. Her philosophy was that kids could just play with whoever they want to be played with.
Right.
Toys are allowed to be played with whoever.
Well, it's just a bit concerning.
It's suggesting that.
Because I think they want to make her a more compelling character, so they introduce this what seems to very clearly be an internal conflict for her, but it never gets resolved. It just gets pushed back, and now she's dragged Woody out with her. So it's strange. It seems like something that should have been addressed, but I feel like it never was.
It just was just oh, now they're together and now they're happy together, and now instead of they're both their ideologies are correct when they're not.
Right.
Both aren't correct. They both have flaws.
It feels broken.
Yeah, you can't just say that they're both right when they both have flaws. It can go either way. It can't go both. She can't be this person who says all these toys can go and be free, and then the post-credit scene shows her helping Woody free all these toys to go to kids. And I'm sitting there going like, that doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's not how that works. You know, it's Woody's belief is that toys should stay with whoever they're with and be loyal until they move on. Then they move to another kid. You know, that's his philosophy, and he's believed that for all these years. Bo Peep has now reached the point where she's like, kids can play with whoever they want, and if that's what they're going to do, then they'll play with whoever. And that was Lotso's belief, sort of. And Lotso was the villain, so why is she the good guy now?
Yeah, it just, I don't know.
The movie wants both sides of the argument, but it doesn't.
It seems it's kind of that thing that I've been noticing more and more. Like, I noticed it with the new Star Wars movies too. It seems like, or like the last season of Game of Thrones, it just seems like the writers watched the previous movies one time a long time ago, and now they're trying to make a movie based off of like memory.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, it feels like the stuff has already been addressed, and now they're doing it again, but differently. So
but in a different setting, because it feels weird and wrong.
Yeah.
So, is there really anything left to say? I mean, I don't have much to say about this film. I really don't. I could go on and on about how the fact that they are hiding and like it's so poorly done, and how now it's more of an action film than it is a character film, which arguably that's what these movies were. They were character dramas with comedy. They were showing how characters change and how their beliefs change over the course of a film. But in this film, it feels like their beliefs and wills change depending on what the story needs.
Right. Things are just where the plot needs them to be.
Yeah.
And there's like,
don't argue.
When we have to introduce these new characters that we, if we're going to spend time on characters, our limited hour and a half on other characters, like pick ones that we care about.
Pick ones that we already know,
Right. Like Key and Peele, like they're funny, but they open their appearance by being a dick to Buzz. And like
in broad daylight, by the way. Once again, they're moving around.
And they know darn well that like he didn't choose to be there because they're probably the same as him, where they didn't choose to be there.
Right. But instead, it just this film wants to have an emotional closure, but it just doesn't have it. It just doesn't feel like it deserved the ending. Well, and it definitely doesn't deserve the praise it gets. That's for sure.
Oh no, God no. Well, it's just if you watch the movie with your brain turned off, you'll probably feel it at the end. But that's mostly nostalgia working for you. But when you think about it,
so much of that.
Right, because when you actually like pay attention to what's happening, you're gonna realize that these characters aren't behaving the way that they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. All these characters act differently, and and nothing feels earnest. Nothing feels like it was done properly. It all feels like it was some weird thing to say, but it all feels rushed. It feels like it was just a factory-made product that claimed on our nostalgia. Every single for as much as Andy's not in this, they talk about Andy a lot.
Right, and I think it kind of makes sense because they seem to want to play to the idea that Woody still isn't over him, but
yeah,
I don't think it does better by it. Like,
no, I think, like I said, the opening shot of him talking fine, but like mentioning him every other minute, being like, remember when it was Woody's toy and the world made sense? I remember. Oh man, what a time to be alive. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. All right. Can we develop this on the other characters too? How are they feeling? How does the T-Rex feel about all this? How does Rex feel about this? How does Buzz feel about this new life? How are the other characters feeling?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just so odd.
Yeah.
And
so sadly, guys, it was just not good.
Yeah, not great. And like I don't this kind of makes me think like maybe do another Toy Story that isn't from that like isn't these toys. Maybe like you could try like a new group somewhere else.
I wouldn't mind that.
If you
wanted. Think that would be
because I feel like their story was over in the last movie.
Yeah, if they want to do another one, different set of toys, that's fine. Like that's about all I can say. Is there is no reason. This is a factory-made movie. This is another Finding Dory situation. The movie's whole existence is to be like, remember this character. Let's develop this character more, but then have like one scene where you're very emotional.
Right. Remember in Toy Story 1 when Woody had to go to a dangerous place to try to, get his friend back? We're doing that again.
Right. Like, we're doing that again. Yeah, no, that's what happened. And Woody's the one who keeps getting in trouble because he keeps trying to push himself.
Yep. And we see that a lot. Like they're doing it again with a lot of movies. Like I rewatched Predator the other day, the new one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, look, they said get to the chopper. Remember when they did that in the first one? We're doing it again.
The whole point of films nowadays with a sequel is to remind you of better times.
Right.
It's a member berry situation. Member berries. And you can only have so many member berries before you taste. So, James, what will we talking about next week?
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
what would you like to talk about next time?
Let's take a look at the list. The list. What's the list, Cole? Well, I'll tell you what the list is. The list is a list of films that I have from someone from my inside source.
Oh, that list.
Are we
we still doing Star Wars for episode 5?
Yes, Star Wars episode 5. Don't you worry, folks. For number 4, let's go ahead and do. That's probably annoying to hear. These are all horror movies. This really wouldn't work. We will find out next week, or next 2 weeks from now, and 2 weeks from now.
In a fortnight, as they say.
In a fortnight. We'll see you guys then.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us on probably the worst episode we have. Sorry, guys.
I don't know. I wanted to talk about it because I feel like the Toy Story movies are very good. But this was just difficult. Like,
the
movie is unfortunately rough.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully find a better movie to talk about.
Yeah, we should. Hopefully, we can do a praise for next one.
We would love a praise.
Because I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that the Star Wars one is not going to be a praise.
I'll try. I promise, guys. I'll try to counterbalance it.
There you go. He's gonna be as positive as he can about the new Star Wars movies.
Very few.
It'll be fun to watch.
As I try to defend this trilogy.
If maybe you can change my mind. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'll open up your third eye.
There you go.
Okay, bye.
Gross. Bye.